Hello, Gordon. How you
Simon
doing?
McLean.
I was just laughing there because on the way up here to sunny Kilmarnock to do phase 2 of what's becoming a saga. We're going to end up with 21 episodes. I spoke to Sandy, and when we started the last interview, I asked you how you'd came to know him and whatnot, and you said that he had always envied you in
This
this
is true.
job that you had, and they aspired to be you, really.
This is absolutely true.
Well, on the way up, I reminded him of that and asked him for something, some kind of retort. And the best that he could come up with was, he said, make sure you tell him on the record that he's a much better author than he was reporter. I'll let you mull over that.
Right, okay.
In the next episode, we'll get a retort from you.
But he thinks I'm a terrible author, so is he?
Well, how are you doing? How have you been since I last
Yeah,
saw you?
we're good. Last time I saw you, the sun was shining, and today, for whatever strange reason, it's
It's
decided to
back to norm.
a tad damp. Yeah.
And you've had some bad news during that time, Alec. I was reading your beautiful tribute to Yogi.
Big John. Yeah, he's. Oh, I don't know.
John Hughes.
Yeah, he was a lovely guy. He was, seriously, I loved his company. He was a funny big guy.
Had you known him through your career? Is that how you know him, through reporting?
No, strangely enough, I rarely bumped into Yogi during my days at the Daily Record and Sunday Mail. Mainly the guys that you would be bumping into would be like Billy McNeil. If you were going to functions, Billy was always representing Celtic as the captain. When Yogi left in '71, I would be 19.
Right.
So we kind of missed each other. But it was one of these things that when you're going to functions, I mean, I'm very friendly with Tommy Kemmel and Bertie Auld.
Yep.
And Billy. And so if you were along at a function, you would get wedding anniversaries, birthdays and so on. And Yogi gravitated towards our company.
Okay.
And I can't name names, but there was one day we were down at the Burnside Hotel. It was Bertie Auld's 50th wedding anniversary.
Right.
And Gerda and I, my missus, arrived a wee bit late and we couldn't get a table. The place was absolutely packed. And so we were standing at the bar, which is no hardship for either of us. And Yogi came up and said, do you mind if I join you guys at the bar? And we said, fine. I said, why? And he said, because they're having a staring contest over there. And there were a few of his teammates who were not always quick on the draw when it came to getting the pints in. So Yogi thought he stood a better chance with us.
Right.
So we spent.
Had he read that situation correctly then, Alec?
Yes, absolutely. As we get carted off into the night later on. So basically.
And that was the start?
It was, funnily enough, because he mentioned Bertie's book. And he said, how do you go about writing them? And I said, sit down and talk
to Sandy Jimison
to people.
Get some advice.
Well, Sandy...
Is that what you said?
No, I didn't actually say that, because I'm prone to the truth. You know? So I've always said...
For a newspaper reporter, that's some statement.
Excuse me, I have never been sued.
I'm prone to the truth.
I have never... why let facts get in the way of it? Right. But,
I was a policeman, so I can empathise with that sentiment.
Should we both not be locked up? Should we have a cell block H or something, having this conversation? So that was, we basically got to know Yogi, and the book had been mentioned. And I think I did say in the eulogy, and it sounds like an exaggeration, but Gerda's sitting there and she would back me up. We were putting up the Christmas tree, and he was a nocturnal creature, I should say,
right.
Yogi. So phone calls for Yogi at the back of 10 became normal.
Right.
The phone went 10, 11 or midnight. It was Yogi.
You knew who it was?
Yeah, it was Yogi.
You didn't need caller recognition to know it was him.
It was definitely Yogi. And I was up balancing on a chair, putting the fairy lights around, and I don't know, somebody's going to have to come up with a way of doing this that I haven't quite managed to master. And the phone went.
You put the fairy on, did you?
I always put the fairy on.
You're in charge of the fairy.
That little fairy has followed me around for about 30 odd years. Poor wee soul. But then the phone went, and I could have guessed. But at that time, Yogi and I weren't as friendly as we became. I thought, oh God, who's phoning? Ross to that effect. And as I came down fighting off flexes and cable and managed to get to the phone, and it was Yogi. And honestly, he just was no good evening, or am I bothering you? If I phoned at a bad time, I want you to write my book. Pardon? I want you to write my book. I felt saying,
Good drinking him then. Had a good drinking him.
No, not at all. No, Yogi was fine with Bevy. He was a big lad, and he could take a couple of beers. And basically, that was it. We really got to know each other, and we went on holiday. The families went on holiday with each other.
What was his book called?
Yogi Bear, as in Bare.
Right.
Strip Bear. So it was just Yogi Bear.
So you ghost wrote it, is that the term?
I don't know what you want to call it, co-author it, or basically you talk to somebody. I haven't got dictaphones, and I don't turn up with sex.
Tell me about that process, Alec. The reason I'm asking is because I've started working with Ringwood now to expand the base of diversity of what Ringwood's about and the different authors, different subjects we want to cover. And I've came across 2 or 3 people who have got great stories. Mm-hmm. But A, they've not got the time, and B, they don't have the skills or confidence to be able to put anything down on paper. But they would be quite happy to sit and tell somebody the story. Yeah. And some of them need to be told. We're talking about Scottish football was the first one that I came across, and a guy that wants to expose a lot of what was going on in the 70s and 80s with Scottish football. But I've not got anywhere near the story yet. I'm just thinking about the process of doing that. Tell us how you go about ghost writing then, or co-writing as you call it.
Well, but I'm probably the worst guy in the world to ask seriously.
Despite having done it for 2 or 3 people. How many have you done?
I think I've done 6.
Right. Yogi and...
Yogi, Tommy Gemmell, Bertie Auld, Davy Hay, Chick Chanley, and Jim McCalliog.
Yeah.
So
it's not a bad 6-a-side team right there.
I could even play a goal and only lose about 10 in the first 5 minutes. No, it's just one of these things that.
So you're the last guy to ask, having done it 6 times.
But I don't. If somebody said, "What's your process?" Well,
is it varied every time then?
Well, I don't turn up with set questions. I mean, you know you've got to get the ball rolling somehow. But if you're talking to an individual, Simon, they can be talking about 1960 and then suddenly they're into 70.
Because the stories.
Stories, and you'll find that like a lot of people that get butterfly minds, they fly off from one subject to another. Mm. So if I was sitting there with say 10 or 20 set questions, it would drive me nuts. So basically I'll talk to them, and I don't have shorthand, so basically I'll write down a bullet word. If you say something to me, I can write a couple of bullet words, and I'll know I can then reconstruct a sentence round that. I mean, when I did Bertie Auld's book, Bertie actually said to me, we're getting near the end, he said, have you taken notes yet? Have you done anything? I said, Bertie, we've written about 80,000 words at the moment.
Right.
So basically, it's like a chat. It's going out and having a
And you
lunch.
don't record it?
No, I don't record it. I've amazingly, I've still.
So,
I've got crazy.
If you were writing my book, and you're not, because I've already written, and we were chatting, and I told you a story from 1980 when I met Paul McCartney. Right? At his farm near Campbelltown. Mm-hmm. And I went up there as a young detective. I wasn't even a full detective at that point. I was an aspiring detective. And I went up, honestly, just to meet Paul McCartney, right? But I had a ruse. Okay? My ruse was that there was a fair the next day that they always went to with the kids and their horses. Uh-huh. And my ruse was that John Lennon had just been shot the year before, and I was just making sure that the security arrangements were in place. A good ruse, yeah. No?
New York,
Campbelltown. Yeah.
I could see the similarities.
Murderers.
Because muggers are everywhere in Campbelltown, aren't they? I could see
terrible.
That. Yeah,
terrible.
I could see the terrorists obviously targeting.
You're right, you are the wrong man to ask.
The Nell Gwyn tea rooms. So how
I go and meet Paul and have a great time for 45 minutes or so until my bottle crashes and I realise where I am sitting in with him and Linda and the kids in the farmhouse.
Uh,
And the next day I go to the show and I see Paul and Linda and I solve a big mystery that day as well. But I need to leave something for the imagination so that folk will buy the book. So what notes? You never took any notes there. How would you summarise that for your notes for then putting that into my book that you're writing for me?
That's an easy one, that. The most important person in that particular story is Paul McCartney. I'm sorry to upset you,
Right.
but then you never sang Love Me Do. So there you go.
You don't know that.
And, well, you might have been in Help, but not the movie.
It's actually quite interesting because if you had read the story, you'll know that the most important person in it was not Paul McCartney. It was Linda McCartney. But again, you're going to need to read the story.
I would need to find that from you, because if I said to you, right, the most important person in that story is Paul McCartney, that's where you say, no, it's Linda McCartney.
Yeah.
So then I veer off in your information. Basically,
You write it in the first person. Do you write it as if you're me?
no. Once I'm actually getting around to putting it into the computer. But basically, when I'm with somebody, I'm not writing anything, and then I did this. That doesn't work for me.
Right.
If you said like McCartney, Campbelltown, and Lennon, I would have put
Those are the
in-
trigger points.
These are the bullet points, and that all the other stuff. When you're talking to me, I can take that. My memory still works. It's crazy. I can't remember.
You'll remember the
gas bill.
story, yes.
But yeah,
yes.
it's a strange memory bank I've got. It's weird.
Right.
No, it is.
Because the kind of punchline of it was that Paul, when we got back, when I was leaving, Paul followed me out. Paul, see how I did that?
Oh yeah.
No,
Not even Sir
Sir-
Paul.
No,
Yeah,
just Paul. Palsy. Me.
Palsy baby.
He came out with a wee bag, Alec, and he said, Simon, I found this when I was out horse riding this morning, and it was a cigarette out. And remember, Lennon had been killed the year before, and he said, I thought I saw binoculars or a shine of or whatever. Could you get this tested for me and see? I think there might be somebody stalking or hanging about. I mean, he does get that kind of thing does happen. So I had seen TV and all that as well. So I said, no bother, I'll get that off to Interpol right away, and stuck it in Interpol. See how I did there?
Interpol.
Put it in my pocket and off I went.
The local guys.
Couldn't
were
spell
really good.
Interpol, right? The next day at the show, I saw his daughter, Heather, in a car with her pal, a local farmer's daughter, and they're laid back having a smoke in the car. They'd be about 15 or 16 at the time. So I went up to the car and said, hi there. She went, oh, you're the policeman that came to see my dad, blah, blah. I said, yeah. He doesn't know you smoke, do you? Oh, please don't tell him, my mum. They'll kill me. I said, is it John Player's special that you smoke? How do you know that? I said, because you throw them away at night time when you go home. So I solved the crime, but I never ever told Paul McCartney that.
That's a nice wee story.
So it's a nice wee story.
Yeah.
My interest in it is how you would incorporate that into if you were doing the book for me.
Basically, for a book, by anybody's life story, you try to come up with stuff that's absolutely fresh.
Right.
You know, and if you're dealing with Paul McCartney, you're looking and thinking, what stories about Paul McCartney have we not read before?
Right.
I mean, he's probably got a day in Norwegian Wood, just in his interviews. So basically, you're looking for. I mean, like with Bertie Auld. I mean, Bertie was great with the press when he was a player and he was a manager. Talked to the media, he did the newspapers, he did radio. So basically, you had to sit down and with Bertie, I said, forget football just now. Tell me about your upbringing. He says, that interesting? I said, well, let's see.
Yeah.
And it actually turned out it became a breeze to write it because it was so good.
Yes.
It was,
Yes.
I mean, and
His family.
his mother, I mean, I actually I had 7 Day Press at the time, and I was talking to the boys. They were saying that about 5 or 6 years start.
7 Day Press was an agency, press agency.
And one of them said, how's the book going on with Bertie? I said, well, just come across that his mother actually used to be a hawker. And I went, really? I said, yeah, and she used to go around the
doors.
closes, the doors, and and he said, and he doesn't mind that you're going to put that in his book. And it suddenly dawned on me that this guy was a lot younger than me.
Right.
He thought I had said hooker. Which would have been an interesting line in the book, so I had to explain what a hawker was.
Spelling error.
Yeah, but so basically that was, we had to get in very early with it, what a hawker was, and the family, the upbringing of the family was fabulous. And Bertie had a natural sense of humour.
Yes.
He said that there was one of his brothers. They used to all, I think there were 3 brothers, and they used to Dops and Dales, and he'd just joined Celtic at the time, and his mum said, and he brought home some money, and the mum said, "That's fabulous, son. I'm going to give you a wee treat tonight." And Bertie said, "Right, Mum, that'll be fabulous, thanks." And they came to the end of the night, and Bertie said, "Mum, I've not had my treat yet." She said, "Well, you can pick where you want to lie in bed." And he said, "Do I have to sleep at the deep end?" One of his brothers had a wee problem. So he booked the shallow end that night.
That was the fail, the shallow end.
But if you're doing stories like that, Simon, you know these haven't appeared in print.
Yeah,
really.
And the materials all there. It's just,
I mean, I didn't need to build Bertie Hall's character. We knew who he was.
Yes.
But so if you're there and he's talking about the pawnbrokers and stuff, and
it's real.
He could, and he had great recollection of the names of the people that owned these pawn shops and stuff like that. And so it eased you right into tell me about joining Celtic, and then from there it's you just keep looking for something we don't know.
So are you writing it as an outsider, talking about Bertie?
Yeah.
And you do that with all the books? Is that the same voice that
it's basically
narrates the books?
I mean, I've written 25, 26 football books, so that's 6 autobiographies.
Wow.
So it's with a lot of the books you're actually phoning people for, say we come across Celtic against AC Milan in 1970. So we say, right, let's go for a fresh angle on that. We know Celtic lost 2-1. We know who scored the winning goal, blah, blah. So you then, Evan Williams, the goalkeeper, put a call into Evans. A lot of these guys are so
Tommy
amenable.
scored the Celtic goal?
Did
Tommy Gilmore score the Celtic goal?
Tommy scored the Celtic goal, yeah. I've written that a few times.
So he scored in 2 European Cup finals?
He's the only British player to have scored in 2 European Cup finals and a World Club Championship final, because he scored against Racing Club in Argentina as well. So famous guy. And likewise with Tommy, he had done so many things as well in the past with so many other different authors.
So if you and I were going to do my book, that's already done, sorry. How much time would we spend on it?
Haven't a clue.
No, does it vary for everyone?
The only time that you would be pressed is if the publisher
It's got a deadline on it.
It's got a deadline, yeah. But
okay.
you would always make sure that you've got a fair bit of leeway before that deadline.
Would you do an hour stints or 2 hour stints?
Again,
varies.
There was one guy I did, and he always had somewhere to be. Sometimes I can't name names, but you could get him there for the rest of the day, and then you would see him looking at his watch, and his mind's elsewhere. You're not getting a lot of material,
it's time
and basically you just say, right, do you want to cut out, and we'll catch up some other time, and he would go to wherever he was going. So I just kind of play it by ear. It's a lot.
What about Yogi then? How much time did you spend with Yogi to get his book together?
It was actually that book just came together very, very quickly. If you were asking.
Jim McCallum, that's the most recent one, Jim, isn't
Jim, well, I think there was a lot of problems there but COVID had just broken out, so there was a lot of
getting together.
I mean, if you're going to do an autobiography, you really got to sit in with the guy.
Yes.
You can do so much over the phone, possibly that you might.
You can find material all over the place, but you really need time with them to get that
absolutely
personal touch.
And you will, and they'll remember things while you're sitting looking at them, because as opposed to being in the phone, you will. I mean, it's rather obvious. You'll get a whole lot. The personality will come through.
Yes.
But basically, for me, I find it interesting because I was a fan, and it's a bit like still. I mean, John Hughes was my dad's hero. I mean, he really was.
It's a labour of love in many ways.
And a lot of ways. I mean, I'll tell you the truth, Simon. I stop enjoying it. I'll stop.
Yeah.
I mean, when it becomes
Chore.
and I swear that when it becomes a chore, I'll stop. I'm 70. So far, I've enjoyed it. I don't get up and say, "Oh God, I've got to go and meet so and so." And so far it's so good.
So you doing any just now? You any projects?
I'm doing
biographies on the go.
I'm not football wise. I've got an idea for football, but I can't mention.
You've not told him yet, or her?
No, it's a collective story which I'll tell you later.
Okay.
But if
You heard it here first, or you didn't hear it here first.
No, you didn't hear first. No, sometimes if you put it out, it's unscrupulous people.
So I had a scoop there.
I'll do that, and they dive in. But at the moment, the book I'm writing is for Ringwood, and that's called What's Getting to Geronimo.
Okay.
And
So let's now look at your novels then. When did you start writing fiction? I take it they are fiction, these books.
mainly. Well, a lot of characters in there are, of course, real life.
Are they in order here? No,
they?
not really.
They are, as a matter of fact.
Okay, run us through them, Alec.
Right. Who Shot Wild Bill?
Okay.
You can see that.
Is that most recent?
No, that was the one we did
In
first, and it was set in Millport. And basically, a lot of people, I can't remember how many football books I had done up to that stage, but I was doing a Dennis Law book.
A Millport murder mystery. There's not many of them about, is there?
You're a former top cop. You should know. There has never been a murder in Millport. Never. One of the rare places in this little country of ours where there's never been a murder.
12,000 suspects. Is that how many people go over for the country in Western?
They can get 12,000, no problem.
It must be falling off the edges.
Well, the thing is, I mean, unless it's changed in recent times, the police come over from Ardrossan, I believe, but they go on the last ferry as well.
Right.
So from about 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock onwards, the place is festooned with strangers and one beat cop, possibly two. So if you were going to murder somebody, there's your time and place to do it. And it was just...
You put a bit of thought into this, haven't you?
It just kind of came together. Honestly, there's no any... I'm not Frederick Forsyth or anything like that, but it was an idea, and people had asked, can you only write football stuff? And it wasn't anything that rankled with me, but I was writing a Dennis Law book, and I was getting bogged down in stats.
Because there's so many with Dennis, isn't there? Because
I realised, Simon, there was so much about Dennis that I hadn't a clue about, and there was a period. I mean, what do I know about him being at Huddersfield, and then from Huddersfield to Man City and so on, and then on to Torino. So there was an awful lot that I needed, and I was really getting bogged down, and I thought, I'm going to take a break from this.
Right. Good thinking.
And then this Who Shot Wild Bill. Amazingly, both these books were published in the same day by different publishers.
Right.
Amazing. So therefore, that came, and the characters were guys.
Not be many folk had 2 books published in the one day.
I've done it twice. It's just incredible. I know. You couldn't make it up.
So this is the first?
That was the first, and I quite liked the idea. No, I really thought it was a one-off.
Right.
I had no thoughts about doing any kind of follow-up.
Okay.
Sandy read that, and
Sandy Jemison
read it, and he thought it reminded him a wee bit of Kinky Friedman. I'd never heard of Kinky Friedman.
I haven't.
And a friend of mine also read the manuscript before that became a book, and he said, "Are you a Kinky Friedman fan?"
Right.
And I thought, why is everybody mentioning Kinky Friedman to me? And so I had to buy a Kinky Friedman book, and astonishingly, he's a better writer than me, but there are similarities.
Right.
And so Sandy read that, and he bought it off the rights off the publisher, the original publisher.
Okay, for Ringwood.
So for Ringwood, and so when I met Sandy, and that was when he asked me for my autograph. And
this is because you were his idol.
Because I was his idol.
He bought the publishing rights of your book.
And he's still got the posters on his wall, I believe, much to the chagrin of Maxine. So from that, he said, "Could you?" And I thought, yeah, we'll have another go at it. So from that came what's booked Crazy Horse.
Right.
So I thought I would keep with the Wild West themes as far as...
How long ago was this?
I think I did that a year or 2 years after that.
And when did the first one come
I
out?
don't know. Was it 2008, something like that?
Okay, about 14 years.
I should know these things. But so that I decided, could you possibly have...
Are we back in Millport again?
Yeah, I mean, because people had said, how do you get away with that? I mean,
Yeah.
Millport, for those who don't know, is 10 miles in circumference. It's not the biggest place in the world. And it's so, if you set a murder there...
I can't even think of 12,000 people being in Millport. What was the ferry like? It'd be hanging off the
They
side.
used to even...
Do you remember the old Yoker ferry? It used to go across to Ibrox
No,
after a game. They were hanging off the sides, they were on the roof, there was thousands on it.
is that the
It was-
players?
That's what I'm thinking of with the Millport ferry, the two ferries going back and forth.
So anyway, I set that in Millport, and the footballer's nickname was Crazy Horse.
Right.
So he had gone AWOL, and he had links with Charlie Brock, the main character that goes around doing all the solving,
Okay.
who happens to be a freelance sports reporter.
Oh, he's
Handsome, devastatingly handsome.
not a detective. Did you
No,
steer
no,
away from the detective?
No, he's far too handsome to be a detective.
You never had the jargon for the detective, obviously.
No, I was.
You didn't know me at the time.
No, I'm thankful for those days.
The good old days, we call them.
The good old days, as they say. So basically, that, and I think Sandy quite liked it, and he said, "How about another one?" So,
Oh no!
so we did Who Stole Sitting Bull.
Right.
Sitting
So
Bull.
this is the trilogy.
This, if it was going to be a trilogy, it wasn't meant to be, but it's just, I thought, right. So the nickname for this is a boxer who gets, and they used to do this every now and again. They would line up easy knockdown characters for the champions,
Right.
who would get bored in the ring and in training, speedballs and whatever. So they would actually line up a couple of bums, and this guy was a Scot who got the opportunity to fight for the world title.
Right.
And these things can happen.
Yeah.
So his nickname, though, was Sitting Bull because he was always getting knocked on his backside. So he got up and won, of course, but he was called Sitting Bull. So I had to keep...
Oh, no spoilers.
No spoilers, right. So anyway, there's a bit of a mix-up. This is set in Crete. You really couldn't kidnap anybody in Millport. But you could in Crete, and I'm sure it happens every day.
Yeah.
So basically, that's set in Crete. There's a bit of confusion.
They gave you an excuse to go and do a bit of research as well, no doubt.
Indeed, and
Yes.
I've got the income tax receipts to prove it.
In fact, you're still researching that book.
Yeah, I would read. So that took care of that one, and the last one I did was Who Jinxed Jesse James. And again, you've got to keep the Wild West thing going.
The cover's a break here. Obviously, Ringwood got a new cover designer.
Yeah.
It's nice.
So Jesse James is a columnist at the Daily News, which was a newspaper that Charlie Brock used to work on before he became freelance.
Is Charlie Brock based on anyone in real life? Is he drawn from a character?
Yeah, me.
Yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not. It's not an ego thing. It's just, and I know that a lot of other authors say, their main characters are based because it's dead easy to remember.
You're
You're
not going to make a mistake.
No, has he got specs or has he got a moustache or a beard or something, So you think, no, not yet. So basically, I thought if I can take Charlie Brock and just put this guy as sports reporter and put him in places where things actually happen around about him, which can, I mean, if you've worked in newspapers for a long time, things do tend to happen around about you. So that's where we are, and the next one is that I'm working on just now is What's Getting to Geronimo.
Right. This is the one that Sandy's been asking me to prod you along with.
Yeah.
Ask how you're getting on with it. Last time I told him you'd done 20,000 pages and he scoffed noisily. Because we both knew it was made up.
No. Excuse me, the computer is next door, and you can go through and have
so
a
you've
chat.
actually done something now.
I have, but and if I've got to be honest.
Again?
I know, twice in the same day. With things happening around about me with John Hughes, and there was,
of course,
another fella that we're very friendly with. if you're trying to write a quirky sort of who done it and you know and a little joke in everywhere, I think you've really got to have your mindset on it.
Yeah, you need concept.
So, in all honesty, there you go. A third time,
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. So I thought, if I write anything I don't know about anybody else's writing styles, but I can write and come down in the morning, look at what I've written, and wipe it out.
Yeah.
You know, I'll just stay alert and go, you know, what was I drinking last night? And just empty it and then start again.
Yeah.
You know, and suddenly about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 words can just be sent into the ether. But there you go.
That's part of the process, isn't it?
Yeah. It's I've always been brought up, Simon, with the thought that for me, when I worked in newspapers, was it that somebody's buying that paper? You know, forget the million. That somebody has gone out of their way to buy that paper. Make that the best product that you can for them. Genuinely, that sounds a wee bit old-fashioned. Maybe it is.
Not at all.
It might even sound
It's
a bit
very,
racist,
very pertinent for authors, for anybody. I'm saying authors, but there's lots of writing goes on that's got nothing to do with authors. We've got newsletters at Ringwood, we've got press releases that go out, we've got blurbs for the back of books, we've got information sheets that go out for every book to let people know what's going on, and we're communicating with awards and prize people and Book Scotland, everyone. So there's lots of writing going on all the time. And I think one of the hardest things for a writer to do is to discern the good from the bad. You know? Or sometimes you know when you've hit something really good.
Oh, yeah.
When it's just clicks. But the hardest thing for an individual, that's why we've got editors, I suppose. It's why we share our stuff and say, what do you think of that?
Yeah.
Because that feedback is very important. And it's what you've made a lifetime of doing as an editor and sub-editor.
Yeah.
Is having a look at something objectively
Yeah.
and to decide whether it's good enough to go in or not. And doing that for yourself. I often say to people, don't try and edit your own stuff. Find somebody you can trust that can give you an honest opinion on it.
You need another pair of eyes on it. You really do. I mean, I
Even
would,
just from a proofreading perspective as well, because your brain skips over a lot of things.
you can miss the most obvious thing because you know that in
What should be there?
you know,
Yeah.
like, that there is an integral part missing from this paragraph or this chapter, and you go, yeah, they didn't put that in. So yeah, I think it's always good. I like to sort of edit my own copy because when I was in newspapers again, nothing was sacrosanct. You know, the top guys that were on the sports desk, the names might not mean a hell of a lot to people these days, but for instance, Alec Cameron.
Right, yeah.
Alec was, you know, he was a fabulous writer. He was a good columnist, a good interviewer. And he did a lot of TV back in the days when you had 2 channels,
Radio,
or 3
yeah.
channels, and radio as well. But Alec wrote a column twice a week, and if you were subbing it, or sub-editing if you prefer, you could do what you like with that column.
Right.
Alec was never precious. It was he would, once you had that, and it was paper.
That was the raw material he was giving
He
you.
gave you, and the following day he would obviously he would read it, and he would either thank you or say, why did you move that sentence up here, because I thought that was the right chronological order, and you would give him a reason for it. It's not like you had to rewrite his copy every
No,
day,
no.
but there were occasions when we're all human beings. Maybe you know, you've got days where I think I did say that there are days when the words flow like concrete
Yes.
for absolutely
Yes.
no reason. It's, you know, people say, "Oh, you out in the bevy the night before?" No, nothing at all to do. It
For
just
sure.
doesn't. And
And sometimes the good ideas go down wrong because of the enthusiasm, because it's in there and you
Aye.
want to get it onto paper.
Yeah.
And when you read it back, you need to do it all over again.
Aye.
But at least it's on the paper.
Yeah, I mean, I can write stuff knowing that the following day, this isn't stuff you would just wipe out. You know, you're actually going to put flesh on it. You've got the bones
Yes.
of it. There's no real. You've constructed it, but it's not readable
No.
as such. So therefore, you know, when you come down and you're ready to actually start moving things around and using a few adjectives and try and put a funny in to make somebody smile, then. But it's. I mean, I think everybody's got a strength. I don't know what mine is, but I do know
Talking.
Talking. You're
Talking
not
a
bad.
good
You're
game.
not bad at that. But I know that there were guys who could barely barely construct a sentence, but they were fabulous sub-headers.
Yeah.
If you gave them the story and it had been that, they would spot all the bits that should be here and that should be there, and they would do a fabulous job. But if you gave them a blank bit of paper, they would just sit and look at it for the rest of their life. You know,
Yeah.
so they've got different strengths.
Ringwood have got a short story competition coming up.
Yes.
In fact, it's ongoing just now. It closes on the 1st of December. And you can put 5 entries in, but it's £2 an entry, so that might be problematic. Are you entering? You get any ideas? 3,000 words? Are you a short story man? Have you ever died?
I have actually. Yeah, I did.
Sounds
But
natural for you.
you're looking at a way back when I was about, I don't know, 21, 22, on the Record Sports Desk.
Right.
And I used to do a lot of magazine work, mainly at the Record Year production.
What about a Charlie Brock short story?
Never thought of it.
There you are. I've written a wee thing for the
Do
newsletter.
you want me to come off what's get into Geronimo? And I'll put that in the back burner and write a wee short story.
No,
Do you want
sorry,
to tell-
Sandy, sorry.
Do you want to tell Sandy
A short
I'm now
story could be a wee offshoot. You know, I've triggered something there maybe. But the point I was going to make was that I was doing a wee bit to prompt a short story. Rob McEnroy, one of our authors, has done a wee bit about short story construction and whatnot. And it struck me that if I said to anybody, write me a short story, they'll spend most of the time thinking, what can I write about? What on earth could I write about? Whereas if I said to them, give me a 3,000 word story about a coaster, they'd start right away. And the ideas would start coming and triggering. I could pick that pen in your hand. If you give somebody a subject and say, write about that, they will. But to try and think of something off the top of your head is a different ballgame altogether.
Yeah, again, we're all different people, Simon. I don't. I mean, it's one of these things. If you set a task, I might not think about it right this minute in time, but
It'll formulate.
somewhere I'll be watching the football tonight and something will go ding, and away we go.
It'll be a Charlie Brock footballing meets
Well, like, I mean,
super sleuth detective.
the good thing about working in newspapers, I keep going back to, but that's big.
That's your life, yeah.
And I can't really apologise too much, but it's been. I was there for almost 30 years, and you did get to meet the guys that. I mean, I was born. The Gorbals, Broughton, Castlemilk. These guys were totally inaccessible.
Yeah.
And then suddenly you realise you can pick up the phone and talk to Jockstein, and you can, Jim Baxter. You can get very friendly with Jim, and it's an incredible step. And then once I think you've done that. I wasn't very good at hero worship anyway. There might have been heroes, but I don't. Maybe too practical as a guy.
But they don't like that anyway. They don't.
No, they don't. They feel ill at ease. I mean, some of them I know have said he's a big-headed bugger, and you say what happened, and they'll tell you. You say, oh, maybe he was having a conversation with somebody, and you just breezed in, and it's happened to me. I mean, I've been in nobody knows me.
Yeah.
And,
Wrong time, wrong place.
Well,
yeah.
And well, I mean, Tommy Gemmell and I used to see each other just about once a day. For my offices were right opposite the Iron Horse pub in West Nile Street.
Uh-huh.
And Tommy's insurance company was, I don't know, about 100 yards away.
Up the road.
So Tommy would phone me across and say, I'm in HQ. And you come along and say, Tommy, I'm busy, but just an hour. And in that space of an hour, Glaswegians are wonderful people, and they'll spot Tommy Gemmell, because Tommy was instantly recognisable.
Oh, yeah, totally.
It didn't matter that he was now 70, they're
Same
Tommy
stature
Gemmell.
and everything, wasn't he?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And so they would just come up and they would hand me the phone.
Right.
They never even bothered with selfies then. They just gave me the phone, say a picture. And you could be talking about anything, really, but they would just come straight in.
Yeah.
Tommy Gemmell, I remember you scored
Well,
a goal
public
against
property, really, weren't they?
Exactly.
I was with Jinky a few times when that happened as well, and there was no point resisting it.
No.
'Cause it's just, that's part of your role.
That becomes more a nuisance.
Here's my grandson,
Exactly.
Jinky had to make a fuss.
We've done book signings where that like John Hughes. We did one at Celtic Park before a game, and we were in the Celtic Superstore. And this fella came up and, Yogi, you're my favourite players. He bought a book. The same guy appeared about 5 minutes later with his son. Didn't buy another book, obviously. So we did all the rigmarole again, and he goes, telling the same story. And about 5 minutes later, he came up with a grandson, and then he was just trying to get in people off the street. So you've got these guys have got fabulous patience.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Fabulous. I mean, I haven't been blessed with that. But sometimes that works for me, actually, because I get annoyed with myself, and I think push yourself, and I mean, I don't know.
So conscious. You need to be conscious of it.
Yeah.
But especially for these guys, because they're not just Tommy Gemmell or Bertie, they're representing Celtic Football Club as well.
Oh, absolutely.
They're representing the whole establishment, and they were very conscious of that.
Absolutely.
You could see when they pulled on the blazer, the Lions blazer, the stature changed, didn't it? It became something different.
They're very, very much aware of Celtic and the Rangers guys as well.
Yes.
But for the
There's
ways,
something bigger than you going on.
Yeah, there's a real,
and it's global. It's global as well.
I think some of we've got so many foreigners in the game now. Some of them are slowly understanding now, like Jota on holiday in New York, and people coming up and saying, "You Jota Celtic taking pictures," and they've got Celtic strips on, and you go, "What am I? What's happening here?" I've been with Benfica,
That's right.
Nobody
knew who I was.
So I go to Celtic, and people are coming up in the street, and I think that's that. I mean, the global of both of them. I mean, you go to New York, there's Celtic pubs everywhere.
Yes.
And Gerda and I were in New York,
Boston,
a few years ago. Yeah, and honestly, Simon, we were in this pub. We were told to go. We were told it was a Celtic pub, so we were there, and just the guy said, "Oh, Scotland," and I was chatting. He was Irish, and what do you do? And I noticed, honestly, there were about 4 or 5 of my Celtic books behind them,
right?
And I didn't want to spend the rest of the day.
No, that was you.
So
never cracked a light.
No,
it's a good thing it's just your name, isn't it? No picture.
We're trying to sell it. Government health warning was a picture of the author inside.
So Charlie Brock, is Charlie growing through these books? Is he getting older?
Growing?
Has he been promoted? Has he been promoted or anything?
No, Charlie's on the way down.
Is he?
Yeah, that's why he's based on me.
So it is based on you.
Before you say it.
Is he nearing retirement at all?
I don't think so. Charlie's one of these guys. He celebrates, in Geronimo, he celebrates his 56th birthday. But as he's telling everybody, 56 is new 55. So he's kind of timeless, and he's an enthusiastic guy, and he kind of he gets pitched into things. He doesn't actually go looking for trouble.
Okay.
Trouble will find him.
Is he kind of Jack Reacher kind of guy?
I didn't actually base him on Jack Reacher, no.
No, it's based on you, the opposite of Jack Reacher, that might suggest.
But they're in by the way, there's, if I can, one of the blurbs at the back, as you say, I was described as being, the guy obviously was thinking about another guy altogether. Charlie Brock was debonair.
Right. You never wrote that?
No, I never wrote that, because Charlie Brock was world-weary, tired.
Have you ever had a drawing of him done, or any caricature of him? Or,
No.
Do you know what he looks like?
Yeah, me.
Don't be horrible. Poor Charlie.
This is where my mum's not around. That's all I can say. By the way, Gerda agrees with you.
She told me to say it.
And so does anybody watching.
So that's the late. Any idea of the plot without any spoilers for the new book? How far through it are you? Halfway or more?
No, I have done 20,000 words.
Right.
And
So that's about a fifth of the way.
the idea that unless something crops up while I'm writing it, it's all there to take me from 20,000 to 85 or whatever.
Do you have an ending in your head?
Yeah.
You know the beginning and the end. Is that how you start off?
No.
Before a word goes down on the page,
No.
what have you got?
No, on this occasion, yeah, I do have the end, but it needs to be that end. The same with Who Jinxed Jesse James, because at the start of it, you're wondering, what's this all about? And then you've got to read the last page.
Right,
And
for it
that
all to
explains-
click into place.
That explains, oh, that's what that is.
So you were working towards an ending when you wrote it?
No, as I wrote it, it was just as a one-off to do like a kind of Dashiell Hammett type of story. Not quite in the same category of class, but that kind of, retired and whatever. And I thought I would just write that because then the goofy stuff, the quirky stuff then starts to come in after that. I just wanted to show that I could do it, and then I thought, here's what to do with this. And as it happens, somebody that Jesse James, in fact, he's a gossip columnist, and that's why he thinks he's being threatened. And so Jesse James, he shoots from the lip.
Right.
Sorry about that, folks. And he's writing a book, so I think, well, this is what his book's going to be.
Right.
Because he sends it to Charlie. You can have first read my manuscript before I send it off to the publishers, and then I repeat the first couple of lines of at the start.
Okay.
It works.
Right, got you.
And Geronimo basically.
But that evolves during the process.
Yeah.
Like you've done 20,000 words. Do you know where it's going?
Yeah.
All the way through? Or will that go down avenues on the road?
No. Unless something crops up.
Right.
I changed the killer in Wild Bill.
Okay.
I had somebody else altogether, and as I was
During
writing
the
it,
course of it.
yeah, I thought, no, wait a minute.
I remember reading once that in fiction, it's never the book you envisaged at the start when you start off.
So many people have said that. To me, no to that one. With Wild Bill, I had an idea, but that was my first bit of fiction that I had to write. So I came at it totally fresh. I mean, normally I'm dealing in facts.
Of course, yeah. Well,
So,
the press's version of fact.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I still haven't been sued. And what I loved,
Yet.
and it was, well, no, it's not going to happen. But what I loved was that sometimes when you're writing a book, it's rather obvious you're going to have to go and meet people, or you're going to phone them. The amount of people who say, "Yeah, phone me at 3 o'clock, I'll be there," but I'm not. And you think, okay, that's happened several thousand times. But the lovely thing about fiction is you get up in the morning, put on your old T-shirt and your tracky bottoms and come downstairs, and all the little characters are in your head, and they're all good to go.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying I'm not at the phone. It's that, yeah. So I love the freedom.
Good. Yeah.
Of the.
Because you're not relying on anybody
No,
else.
it was great because it wasn't like, well, I need to talk to X
Yes.
to get this chapter finished, or
And I need to explain what it is that I need to try and get that.
Yeah.
But
So-
here you're in total charge.
Exactly. And
They
it's
all
great.
do what they're told.
Well, some of them do. To show Charlie Brock does. So I just liked it, and thankfully Sandy liked it as well. God bless his cotton socks, and here we are at number 5. If it seems like today, great. But I mean, it's
I'm
fun.
going to come back and we'll talk about your other books that are not Charlie Brock books. But firstly, I want to ask you something
Yeah.
that's pertinent, because we've got some new interns starting. We've got some interns that have never worked with an author. And the Ringwood methodology, if you like, is that every author is allocated a worker, an intern to work alongside them. Have you got an intern working with you just now?
I haven't met them, but Sandy's mentioned.
Okay, because it's a process that's happening right now.
Yeah, no, it's always good to.
Have you had an intern working with you in the past then, with these other books?
Yeah. But
What's your experience of that, Alec, then? Working with an intern, and what you would hope that they would bring to the table with you as your link with Ringwood as a publisher. And I'll scale it down, excuse me, I'll scale it down a wee bit for you, that I maintain that those 3 months around the launch are the really critical time. When you're writing, you're writing. Yeah. When the book's coming together and being edited and proofread and whatnot, then there's an obvious liaison there, the cover design, all that kind of stuff. There's a liaison there to keep you in the loop. And that's simple enough. But the critical time is a month pre-launch, because we sell the book pre-launch and we build up to the event of the launch itself, and then the few months after the launch when the book is selling at its most. What do you think the role of the intern, as far as Alec Gordon's concerned, what would the ideal role of an intern be in there?
Simon, I've never looked at the people as being interns. I always
Okay,
look at them as,
that's good.
as editors. I mean,
Right.
And basically, I've been fortunate because the three that we've done here, and I think these two memoir books, basically I've been dealing with Sandy. But the editors, for me, have been something that I always love is enthusiasm.
Right.
There's a lot-
Sorry, Alec, there's two different things here. There's the editors that you work with, and that's what they do. There's a team with a head editor and usually a couple of other interns that are helping him or her. Behind the scenes, you don't necessarily have anything to do with that.
That's news to me.
But you work with one editor,
Uh-huh.
basically, who communicates with you. But there's other people assisting there. Then there's once that process is done and you've come to the book, then there's proofreaders. There's a separate team usually of proofreaders that are tasked, maybe newer interns or whatever. They're given chapters, they're given whatever. Over and above all that, every author should have an intern. In my case, it was a girl, Ruth McQueenie, who helped me promote my book. And she was very, very good at the social networking side, at setting up interviews, at promoting the book with me. Things I had no idea what to do.
Yeah.
So that person is separate from the editing process. It's just there to help you get the book out into the marketplace, really. Maybe if you don't have social media, maybe if you don't have an author page, or your own website some authors have, or whatever it might be. Is this making any sense?
No, the reason for the silence is that basically for me, that's been an area where I've never really had any
Okay.
input as
Right.
such. I know that maybe Sandy would probably want me to. It's not that I'm shunning it. It's an area. That's getting into a grey area. Once for me, if we work with the editor, we're happy it's published.
Yep, you've got the book.
The
You do big launches?
Uh,
Do you have in a hotel or anything like that? Do you?
we used to have the upstairs in the Iron Horse pub,
Right.
which was great. It was a fabulous area. It used to be used for weddings mainly, but we always had our lunches there, and they were fabulous. And everything, everything came together
This is for your books?
for these. But
Yeah.
the ones that I think Sandy actually liked the setting. And we had a lot of Ringwood authors having their launches in.
Right.
It was absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, it really was, Simon. So basically, for me, the main thing is get the book written. You work well with an editor. You're both in tow. And then where it goes after that. I know that Sandy said to me, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. But my problem is that I come off, I've got other things to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you've written the book, that's really your job done?
Well, I'll do the bits that I can, and I do have an author's page, and I've got social media and Facebook, etc. So I'll do that, and I'll publicise it as best I can. But there are occasions where I've got to say I just don't have time. I'm sorry, but I'm running 2 magazines every day.
Yes.
I will as soon as Geronimo's done, and I gave Sandy my word, and I'll keep it. But I haven't touched another football book.
Right.
I've got the thought, which I'll tell you later. It's an easy one, but it's
When you've done 26, once you've done 26, it gets a bit easier.
The idea is simple enough, but it's good. It's marketable. Put it that way.
Right.
So you've got to look at that marketplace. You've got loads of football books out there, all sitting, vying with each other at the same thing. So basically, you want to actually write something that's a standalone. Other people might copy it, but you'll get it out first, and it's a standalone book.
Okay.
So,
did I mention to you last time about my pal Jim Orr, who's a walking footballer, Celtic fan, and he writes plays? And he wrote Bend It Like Baxter,
right, yeah.
Bend It Like, can't remember who else, Moncur, Bobby, Bend It Like Bobby Moncur. But he's got a play on just now, Bend It Like Bertie. Fiona and I went to see it in the Eastwood Theatre a couple of months ago. It did the rounds through Scotland. Des McLean is Bertie, really.
I know.
And it's on in the Pavilion in February. He's now got a wee run in the Pavilion, and it's really good.
Yeah,
So,
well, talk get into. Funnily enough, we were
You'd enjoy it, huh?
we were down to go with John Hughes,
yes.
and had one of his sons lives in Ireland, and he was coming over for it. and it just again it collided with something that I couldn't get out of. So
Right.
I actually missed it, but apparently it was a fabulous night. It was
Good
very
fun.
enjoyable.
Yeah, good fun.
Yeah. There you go.
Okay, so the memoirs, as you refer to them.
Yeah, I love the title on this one. Jinx, Dogs, Burns, Now Flew. Which
Rolls off the tongue, really,
it's,
doesn't
it
it?
is, and of course there's got to be a story behind such a daft title for a book.
When did you write this one out?
You know something.
This is a Ringwood book?
It's a Ringwood book, yeah. This
15.
2015.
Okay.
This is it's a funny one. This because when I wrote Who Shot Wild Bill, the first bit of fiction for the publisher, there was a guy that had been introduced to me by a mutual friend, and while I was getting to know this guy and he was getting to know me, he was asking me more about the newspaper trade, and I was telling him stories about the Record and Sunday Mail, and he said, "Are these true?" I said, "Yeah." And genuinely said, "Really?" Because there are some stories in there
Yeah.
just bar me, you
Yeah.
know. And I said, "Yeah, yeah, of course they're true."
Stranger than fiction.
Yeah,
that's what you say,
absolutely, yeah. And so the guy said, "Would you consider doing your memoirs?" And I said, "Oh, nobody knows Ali Gordon." I said, "I've been happy to, if you come up with a big story, I'll put somebody else's name in it." I always did. And I'm not one bit interested in having an ego. I started in the Record at 15. I was on the sports desk just before I was 16. And Jack Adams was my sports editor, and he said, "You got an ego, son?" And I said, "I was born in the Gorbals, brought up in Castlereagh." No. And he said, "Keep it that way." He said, "Because it constantly needs fed."
Yeah.
And I always remember those words, and I was just a kid at the time, so I know some guys that have been legends in their own lunchtime and whatever. So I basically said to the guy, "Look," I said, "Nobody's interested in Alec Gordon. Nobody knows Alec Gordon." And he said, "Well, it's the stories that will carry it." And we never got to publish it with that guy because Sandy then took over Wild Bill.
Right, okay.
And then
yes.
I
So
told him
Ringwood
about-
became your... Yeah.
I became, so I was telling Sandy some of the stories, and he said, "Put that in print and we'll see where we go with it." And I just started jotting them down it wasn't like I wrote about 10 in one day, it would be like one or
Okay.
two or three, and spotting them around because there was no deadline until such times as that you've got enough for a book, and you said to Sandy, "Right, you want to have a look at this?" And Sandy said, "We're going to publish it." He said, and at that time we didn't have a title. He said, "What are you going to call it?" And I said, "Jinx, Dogs, Burns, Now Flew."
You had the title? Yeah.
The same Jack Adams, the sports editor, we used to work in hot metal, which a lot of people wouldn't even know what hot metal is, in newspapers at the time.
Printing press.
The printing presses.
Yeah.
I know computers these days. But back then, if you were given a headline size,
Uh-huh.
like for instance, Burns has got 5 characters in it. So that's going to be your widest headline. If you've got 5 decks, as we've got there, that's going to, in metal, in hot metal, if it bursts, say you can only get 4, well, that S is going to
The Burns.
So you've really got to fit in the headlines.
Okay.
So I did that headline, Jinx, Dogs, Burns, Now Flew, and gave it to Jack. And Jack said, "That's barely English,"
Right.
and threw it away.
Right.
He said, "Try again."
Okay.
And the story is that it was a guy called Burns who played for Aberdeen, and he'd been out for an injury for ages, and he came back and he got the flu. So he was out for another month or so. And it became Jinx, Dogs, Burns, Now
Now
Flew.
Flew.
See, what would have helped that headline would have been the word hoodoo. That wouldn't have fitted. There are six
yes.
characters.
Oh, I can't go to it.
So if you count the HOODOO, 6 characters, so hoodoo would have been out. But so the Jinx and the Dogs and the Burns all colliding off each other. I thought it was a good headline.
It is for a sub-editor, I suppose. What do you call the guy that does the headlines? What do you call
That's
that?
a sub as
Is
well.
that the sub
Yeah,
as well?
If you've got the story, you've
Yeah.
got the style to. Back then, it was a lot more difficult than it is now. Absolutely, for sure.
Why?
Well, if
Because of the restrictions of the hot iron.
No, if you said to me, Alec, there's a story, it's going to go into this space. Now you've got it's
Right,
a big
okay.
framework.
Didn't have justifiers.
So you've got to size it properly.
Yes.
You know, and if you're editing it, you've not got time to count the words.
Right.
And you've got different typefaces as well and type sizes. So basically, if you've got something that should fill this column and it drops dramatically short, then you've got a problem.
Right.
You know, so back then they used to just...
And what's different now? Computers.
Well, you can see it on the screen.
Right.
You know, so you're thinking that's dropping short, I'll throw in a couple of adjectives or, you know, a couple of crossheads or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's there, but back then it left you, your sports desk went to the case room department, and then you went up to see the stuff, and they would bring it out in a trolley, in a tray, put it, and then you would see that thing is either short or it's over, it's burst.
Right.
So if it's burst and you're reading this upside down, because they don't proof everything, you don't have time. So you're saying take that chapter out of there, that paragraph, I should say, a sentence, and start, and they would pick through it.
Right.
It's fabulous. And once you can do that, when newspapers move on,
Yeah.
I mean, the guys back then, you had to size the stories properly, or you've just left it.
Aye, they were the days.
They were the days. I wonder why I've got grey hair, and I'm only 18.
I've just realised that this might have been the reason that this could get the blame for my book, The 10%. It just dawned on me. When I spoke to Sandy originally, it was nothing to do with me. It was about a guy who had been doing his memoir with a ghostwriter from Ringwood, and he died. His name was Magnus Maweta. He was a friend of mine. And after he died, Sandy got in touch with me because I had been going to do the forward of it for him, because he dealt a lot with the cops and crime squad and all that. He was a rogue. He was a likeable rogue, Magnus. And I went and met Sandy for the first time, totally to see if we could finish this book. But we got on. And it was meant to be a half-hour meeting that went on for 3 hours. You'll be accustomed to that kind of thing.
Yeah, been in that movie.
Yeah. And during the course of it, I told him a couple of stories, like you do. He would tell me something about social work, and I'd told him a few stories about the post. And he said, do you ever think of writing any of these down? And I said, well, folk say that all the time to me. Oh, you should write that down. He said, well, do it. This is a publisher, a CEO of a publisher. So for the first time, I thought about it. And I did that. I wrote a few stories like you're talking about in here. And do you know what he sold me on it? He said, there's a market for these, because we've got one just now, and it's from the 70s, and it's about the reporting world. Newspaper reporting. And it's stories about those days. That's possibly the template for my book.
Probably.
Yeah, it's getting the blame anyway.
I'm taking the blame.
Because the end of that is that I wrote a few stories, sent them to Sandy, and he came back and said, yeah, do some more. They're good. And over the course of 4 or 5 years. Because I'm disciplined like that, you know. Tight schedule. So that's possibly the reason. But so I'll need to read this and see if it jangles. Because there'll be coppers in there as well, no doubt, somewhere.
There must be.
Yeah.
It just seems an awful long time since.
And the more recent, A Raccoon Stole My Thunder?
Was A Raccoon Stole My Thunder. And there's all sorts of guys in there. Just looked at a back page picture here. Kirk Douglas, how did he get in there?
Davy Hay,
yeah. Alistair MacLean, Elizabeth Taylor.
Yeah.
And A Raccoon Stole My Thunder very quickly was, we went to publicise this at the STV2.
Right.
And we arrived, and it was a bit chaotic, to be honest. It was around just before Christmas, and it was heavy snow. And we get in, and the producer, said to me, we're going to take you first, is that okay? I said, sure. So as long as we're home for 7:30 for Emmerdale for Gerda, you know. So
many fresh airs he gets.
So basically, we sat down in the green room, which is not a green room at all.
Yeah.
And as I said, I was devastated to find that it was just tea and coffee. I don't think George Best got that when he was in the green room at the BBC. But so anyway, cut along.
That's probably why it's tea and coffee now.
I think my reputation out before hide the booze. So anyway, the guy said to me, "Right, we'll take you first." Then there was, in fact, it was a policeman coming in for East Kilbride
Right.
that was, and he got caught in traffic, and he was at Christmas time.
Caught by the traffic or in the traffic?
He was in the traffic, I think. But he was there to tell people maybe to lock your cars and don't leave your Chrissy presents and all this sort of stuff.
Aye.
So he turned up and they took him first. There was a second one was supposed to be an old couple who were about 110 years old who were celebrating their 90th Christmas together or something. And one of them had an ingrown toenail, so they never turned up. And somebody else appeared. So basically, I was going down this line from being number one, I was number two, then I was number three, number four, and then they had the cookery bloody thing. So I was even behind the chef, you know, showing us how to make a sausage.
You were the anchor.
And I know I was, and so basically, the producers said, "Thanks, Luke. We realised." I said, "It's all right. It's really not a problem." And he said, "Right." He says, "You're on next." He said, "We've got a singer." He said, "You're on that, right? But it won't change." So I'm sitting there, right? And they've got the big TV in the screen room.
Right, so you can
So I
see
can
what's
see
happening.
the singer was just about to finish, and the producer comes racing through. He went, "You got to hold you." He said, "You're going on last." I said, "Oh, that's great. That's where I deserve to be." He said, "We've just found footage of a family in Fife who have got a raccoon as a pet." So, and apparently it's the only raccoon as a pet in the whole of Scotland. So it flashed the
You
film,
got scooped.
and so
There's a
raccoon stole my thunder. So I came after the.
Did you get on?
I did eventually. Yeah,
10 seconds.
I got 10 seconds. Hello, I'm Alec Gordon. Thanks. So that was Alec. But here's another picture of a raccoon that looks a lot better than Alec. So there you go. So it hasn't been dull. I've enjoyed it.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And more to come. Still enjoying it? Or you wouldn't be doing it?
Yeah, as I said, whenever it becomes a chore time, and I mean it, and Gerda will tell you the truth. Once it becomes...
She'll tell me the truth. So that's the truth. Gerda will tell me.
Gerda will tell you.
This was a waste of an hour.
I've been lying.
Well, she will, hopefully, because I'm hoping that she'll be the next interview that I do. Because I really want to hear about the dweeb and the history of the
Poor
dweeb.
Gerda.
Yes.
The dweeb's a nice man.
And find out who he's based on. Because I'm only guessing just now.
Okay. My lips are sealed.
Alec, thanks very much.
Simon,
As
thank you.
always. As always.
Thank you.
I can't wait for the third episode.